My dear friends, listen carefully. Most people believe wealth is only about hard work, business, or luck. But the truth is far deeper than that. Wealth is not only something you earn, it is something you invite. And just as certain actions invite blessing, other choices quietly push blessing away. Most people think of a house as nothing more than walls, furniture, and a roof. They believe that wealth is earned only outside the home, in offices, shops, markets, and businesses. But this way of thinking misses a very important truth. Before wealth can stay in your life, it must first feel comfortable in your space. A home is not just a place where you sleep at night. It is the environment that shapes your thoughts, emotions, and decisions every single day. In this sense, your home becomes a vessel, and like any vessel, if it is cracked or poorly designed, whatever you try to pour into it will eventually leak out. From the moment you wake up in the morning, your surroundings begin to influence you. The light in the room, the colors on the walls, the feeling of openness or heaviness, these things quietly speak to your subconscious. You may not notice it consciously, but your mind responds to these signals. When a home feels supportive and balanced, the mind becomes clearer, calmer, and more focused. When the home feels heavy or draining, the mind becomes tired, impatient, and scattered. Wealth does not thrive in a scattered mind. Prosperity requires clarity, consistency, and confidence, all of which are shaped at home long before you step outside to work. Think of the home as the foundation of a building. You may build impressive floors on top of it, but if the foundation is weak, the structure will never stand strong for long. In the same way, a person may work extremely hard, chase opportunities, and even earn good money, but if the home environment does not support stability and growth, that money will struggle to stay. This is why some people earn well yet constantly face unexpected expenses, losses, or financial stress. It is not always because they are doing something wrong in business. Often, it is because the vessel meant to hold their blessing is not prepared. A peaceful and balanced home creates emotional safety. When a person feels safe and at ease, they are more likely to take wise risks, think creatively, and act with confidence. These qualities are essential for financial growth. On the other hand, when the home feels tense, heavy, or uncomfortable, the nervous system stays on alert. Decisions are made out of fear rather than clarity. Opportunities are either missed or approached with doubt. Over time, this emotional state quietly limits financial potential. Another important aspect is consistency. Wealth is rarely the result of one lucky moment. It is built through steady, repeated effort. A supportive home helps a person recover from setbacks quickly. When the environment restores energy instead of draining it, the individual can return to work with renewed focus. But when the home itself is exhausting, setbacks feel heavier, motivation takes longer to return, and progress slows down. The vessel becomes tired, and tired vessels cannot hold abundance for long. The idea of a home as a vessel is also about intention. When a home is cared for thoughtfully, it sends a powerful message to the mind. I am worthy of stability and growth. This belief shapes behavior. People who respect their living space tend to respect their time, their energy, and their resources. They plan better, waste less, and value what they earn. All of these habits directly support financial stability. A neglected or poorly designed home, on the other hand, often reflects and reinforces neglect in other areas of life. Colors, light, and space play a major role in how this vessel functions. They influence whether energy flows smoothly or becomes trapped. A home that feels open encourages forward movement in life. A home that feels closed encourages retreat and hesitation. Even without realizing it, people begin to mirror their environment. If the home feels expansive, their thinking expands. If the home feels restricted, their thinking shrinks. Since wealth is closely tied to expansive thinking, the condition of the vessel becomes critically important. It is also worth understanding that wealth is not only about money. It includes peace of mind, stability, and the ability to plan for the future without constant fear. A well-prepared vessel supports all of these. When the home environment promotes calm and clarity, financial planning becomes easier. People are more patient, more disciplined, and more aware of their spending habits. These qualities protect wealth just as much as earning it. Many people look for complex solutions to financial problems while ignoring the simplest influence in their lives, the place they live in every day. They invest in courses, strategies, and tools, yet overlook the environment that shapes their mindset for hours each morning and night. Preparing the vessel does not require luxury or large expense. It requires awareness and intention. When the home supports growth instead of draining energy, it becomes an ally rather than an obstacle. In conclusion, wealth cannot remain where the vessel is unprepared. A home that supports clarity, peace, and balance creates the emotional and mental conditions necessary for prosperity to grow and stay. By understanding the home as a vessel rather than just a shelter, a person begins to see why environment matters so deeply. When the vessel is strong, stable, and supportive, whatever you pour into it, effort, opportunity, or income, has a far greater chance of staying, growing, and becoming lasting wealth. Most people choose colors for their homes based purely on trends, fashion, or what looks impressive to others. Dark gray, charcoal, deep black, and similar shades are often associated with luxury, power, and modern taste. On the surface, they may look stylish, but what many people do not realize is that these colors have a silent influence on the human mind and emotional state. Dark, lifeless colors do not reflect energy. They absorb it, and when energy is absorbed day after day, the atmosphere of the home slowly becomes heavy, dull, and emotionally draining. Light has always symbolized clarity, movement, and growth. In nature, life moves toward light. Plants stretch upward, animals become active, and human beings feel more alert and optimistic in bright environments. When a home reflects light, it creates a sense of openness and possibility. Dark colors, especially when used excessively on walls and large surfaces, do the opposite. They swallow light, making rooms feel smaller, closed, and confined. Even if the space is physically large, it can feel emotionally narrow. This emotional narrowing has consequences far beyond aesthetics. When a person lives in a space that constantly absorbs light, their mood is affected in subtle ways. Motivation decreases, enthusiasm fades faster, and tiredness sets in more easily. People may not immediately connect these feelings to their surroundings, but the connection is real. The mind constantly responds to visual cues. When those cues signal heaviness and stillness, the mind slows down. And when the mind slows down, productivity, creativity, and ambition are quietly reduced. Wealth depends on movement. Money flows toward ideas, action, and confidence. A person who feels mentally heavy struggles to take initiative. They overthink decisions, hesitate to act, and often choose safety over growth. Dark, lifeless colors reinforce this internal hesitation. Over time, this creates a pattern where opportunities are delayed or avoided altogether. It is not that wealth disappears instantly, but rather that expansion becomes more difficult. Another effect of dark colors is emotional absorption. Just as these colors absorb light, they also seem to absorb emotional tension. Stress from work, disagreements, and daily pressures linger longer in such environments. Instead of being released, negative emotions feel trapped within the space. This can lead to frequent irritation, misunderstandings, and a sense of emotional fatigue at home. Where emotional fatigue becomes normal, peace becomes rare, and without peace, financial stability is fragile. A home should be a place where energy is restored, not consumed. When someone returns home after a long day, the environment should help them recover and reset. Light-reflecting spaces do this naturally. Dark, heavy spaces often do the opposite, leaving the person feeling even more drained. When energy is not restored, the next day begins with less strength, less focus, and less optimism. Over time, this cycle affects work performance and financial progress. There is also a psychological link between darkness and scarcity. Dark environments can unconsciously signal limitation and lack. When a person repeatedly receives these signals, they may begin to think smaller, spend defensively, and act out of fear rather than confidence. Fear-based decisions rarely lead to abundance. They lead to missed chances, poor investments, and an inability to recognize growth opportunities when they appear. This does not mean that dark colors are inherently evil or forbidden. The issue is dominance and balance. A small amount of dark color can create contrast and grounding. But when dark gray, black, or dull tones dominate the living space, they overpower the atmosphere. The home begins to feel more like a burden than a support. Instead of lifting the people who live there, it weighs them down. Many people wonder why they feel uninspired at home, why they struggle to think clearly, or why money seems to come and go without stability. They search for external causes while ignoring the silent influence of their surroundings. A home filled with heavy colors may look impressive to visitors, but it quietly works against the people who live there every day. The cost of this influence is not paid immediately. It is paid slowly through lost energy, reduced creativity, and weakened confidence. Wealth requires not only effort, but also an environment that supports effort. When light is reflected, ideas flow more easily, conversations become calmer, decisions become clearer, and motivation lasts longer. In contrast, when light is constantly absorbed, everything feels harder than it needs to be. Tasks feel heavier, progress feels slower, and success feels distant. In conclusion, dark, lifeless colors drain positive energy not by magic, but by their continuous psychological and emotional impact. By absorbing light, they create heaviness in the environment, which slowly translates into heaviness in the mind. A heavy mind struggles to create and sustain wealth. When people understand this connection, they realize that choosing lighter, more reflective colors is not just about beauty. It is about protecting energy, supporting clarity, and allowing prosperity to flow more freely into their lives. Every day, without realizing it, the human mind is being shaped by what it sees. Long before logic and conscious thought step in, color sends signals directly to the emotions. This is why the third key point is so important. The colors you live with do not just decorate your home, they program your mindset. When certain colors dominate your surroundings, they quietly influence how you think, feel, and act. Over time, this influence becomes a habit, and habits eventually turn into a lifestyle that directly affects success and wealth. When you wake up in the morning, your brain is especially receptive. It is transitioning from rest to action, from the unconscious to the conscious. The first things your eyes meet set the tone for your entire day. Soft, light, and balanced colors gently stimulate the mind, making it easier to feel alert and optimistic. Heavy, dull, or dark colors do the opposite. They signal the brain to slow down, to conserve energy, and to remain guarded. Starting each day in that mental state makes progress harder before the day even begins. Colors also affect emotional regulation. Certain tones naturally calm the nervous system, while others keep it tense. A tense mind is constantly preparing for problems, even when none exist. Living in an environment dominated by heavy colors can keep a person in a low-level state of stress. This stress may not feel dramatic, but it is persistent. Over time, it reduces patience, increases frustration, and shortens attention span. When attention span is reduced, focus suffers, and without focus, even the best opportunities are poorly executed. Creativity is one of the strongest drivers of financial growth. New ideas, better strategies, and innovative solutions come from a mind that feels open and flexible. Color plays a major role in whether the mind feels that way. Light and harmonious colors encourage mental movement. They help the brain form connections more easily and see possibilities instead of obstacles. Dark, monotonous environments, on the other hand, make the mind rigid. Thinking becomes repetitive, safe, and limited. A limited mind may protect itself from risk, but it also blocks growth. Decision-making is another area where color quietly leaves its mark. Wealth building requires decisions, sometimes fast, sometimes bold. When the environment constantly sends signals of heaviness and restriction, the mind learns to hesitate. Doubt becomes a default response. People second-guess themselves, delay action, or avoid decisions altogether. Over time, this hesitation becomes a pattern. Opportunities come and go, and the person wonders why progress feels so slow, not realizing that their daily environment has trained them to think cautiously instead of confidently. Mood is deeply tied to productivity. A positive mood does not mean constant happiness. It means emotional balance and resilience. Colors influence this balance every day. When the surroundings feel dull or oppressive, mood drops more easily. Small problems feel bigger, and setbacks feel heavier. This emotional weight makes it harder to stay consistent. People start strong but lose momentum quickly. Consistency is one of the most important ingredients of wealth, and anything that weakens it quietly undermines financial success. There is also the effect of familiarity. When people live for years in the same color environment, the mind adapts to it and begins to accept it as normal. If that environment is heavy, the heaviness becomes normal too. People stop noticing how tired or uninspired they feel. They assume this is just how life is. This is one of the most dangerous effects because it hides the cause of stagnation. When stagnation feels normal, there is no urgency to change. Colors can also influence self-perception. Bright, balanced spaces tend to make people feel more capable and confident. Heavy, dark spaces often create a subtle sense of limitation. When someone constantly feels limited, they unconsciously lower their expectations. They aim smaller, settle faster, and stop pushing their potential. This self-limiting mindset directly affects income, career growth, and long-term financial stability. It is important to understand that the mind is not separate from the environment. The environment is an extension of the mind, and the mind reflects the environment. When you change one, the other responds. This is why people often feel a surge of motivation after reorganizing or refreshing their living space. It is not just physical cleanliness. It is mental clarity responding to a more supportive environment. Some people dismiss this as insignificant, believing that strong willpower alone is enough. But willpower is not infinite. It is influenced by how much resistance a person faces internally. When the environment supports the mind, willpower lasts longer and feels more natural. When the environment works against the mind, willpower is constantly drained just to maintain basic productivity. Over time, this drain shows up as burnout, frustration, and financial stagnation. In conclusion, colors shape your daily mindset more than most people realize. They influence how you start your day, how you manage stress, how you make decisions, and how long you can stay focused and consistent. A mindset shaped by heaviness struggles to create abundance, while a mindset shaped by balance and light naturally moves toward growth. By choosing colors that support clarity, calm, and openness, you are not just improving the look of your home, you are strengthening the mental foundation on which wealth is built. Wealth does not grow in stillness, it grows in motion. Money, opportunities, and success all depend on flow. When there is movement, there is growth, and when movement is blocked, stagnation sets in. This is why the environment you live in matters so deeply. A space that feels stagnant does not encourage action, expansion, or progress. Instead, it quietly teaches the mind to slow down, to settle, and to accept limitation. Over time, this internal stagnation becomes visible in a person's financial life. A stagnant environment is not always messy or disorganized. Many homes that feel stagnant are actually clean, stylish, and carefully designed. The problem is not order. The problem is emotional and psychological immobility. When colors are heavy, dark, and dull, they visually compress space. Rooms feel smaller than they are. Air feels thicker. The mind responds to these signals by reducing movement, less curiosity, less initiative, and less desire to explore new possibilities. Wealth, however, thrives on exploration. When the environment does not invite movement, people begin to repeat the same routines without reflection. They wake up, go through the motions, and return home to a space that reinforces the same emotional state every day. There is no sense of renewal, no feeling of expansion. In such conditions, even ambitious people can become passive over time. They may still work hard, but their efforts lack innovation and adaptability. Without adaptability, financial growth eventually plateaus. Stagnation also affects how people perceive opportunity. In an environment that feels closed and heavy, opportunities feel scarce. The mind begins to assume that options are limited, even when they are not. This perception leads to cautious behavior, holding back, waiting too long, or avoiding change. While caution has its place, excessive caution prevents growth. Wealth often requires timely action, and stagnant environments train the mind to hesitate instead. Another subtle effect of stagnant spaces is emotional buildup. When energy does not move, emotions linger. Stress from work, disappointments, and frustrations accumulate instead of being released. Over time, this emotional buildup creates a constant sense of pressure. Under pressure, people tend to make reactive financial decisions, either impulsive spending to escape discomfort or extreme restriction out of fear. Both patterns damage long-term financial stability. A stagnant environment also weakens motivation. Motivation feeds on freshness and renewal. When nothing in the environment changes or inspires, the drive to improve fades. Goals feel distant and abstract. People begin to settle for good enough instead of striving for better. This mindset shift is dangerous for wealth creation because abundance requires continual improvement and expansion. Financial blockages often show up not as complete failure, but as repeated cycles. Money comes in, but it goes out just as quickly. Progress is made, but it stalls before reaching the next level. These cycles mirror the feeling of stagnation in the environment. The home becomes a physical representation of being stuck, safe, familiar, but limiting. Without realizing it, people align their financial behavior with this feeling. Flow, on the other hand, creates momentum. When a space feels open and alive, the mind feels encouraged to move forward. Ideas come more easily. Solutions appear where problems once felt overwhelming. People are more willing to adapt, learn, and take calculated risks. This openness is essential for breaking through financial plateaus. A flowing environment supports a flowing mindset, and a flowing mindset attracts opportunity. It is important to understand that stagnation is not always dramatic. It is often quiet and comfortable. This is what makes it dangerous. A stagnant life can feel stable, but stability without growth eventually turns into limitation. When people remain too comfortable, they stop pushing their potential. Over time, the gap between what they are capable of and what they are achieving grows wider. Changing stagnation begins with awareness. When a person recognizes that their environment feels heavy or closed, they can begin to introduce elements that encourage movement, light, openness, and balance. These changes signal the mind that growth is welcome. The psychological effect is powerful. Small environmental shifts often lead to renewed motivation, clearer thinking, and a willingness to act. In conclusion, stagnant environments create financial blockages by training the mind to accept limitation and avoid movement. Wealth depends on flow, adaptability, and momentum, all of which are weakened when the space you live in feels heavy and closed. By transforming the environment into one that supports movement and openness, a person removes invisible barriers to growth. When the environment flows, the mind flows, and when the mind flows, financial progress becomes not only possible, but natural. A home is more than a private space. It is an emotional environment that shapes how people relate to one another. When the atmosphere of a home is balanced and uplifting, communication flows more easily, patience increases, and understanding comes naturally. When the atmosphere is heavy and emotionally draining, tension builds quietly, small issues turn into arguments, misunderstandings become frequent, and stress begins to feel normal. This emotional imbalance has a direct connection to financial stability, because peace is one of the strongest foundations of lasting wealth. Heavy, dark, and lifeless colors can subtly intensify emotional pressure. They absorb light and warmth, which are essential for creating a sense of comfort and openness. When these elements are missing, people feel less relaxed in their own space. They may not consciously recognize why, but their nervous system remains on edge. This constant state of mild stress lowers tolerance and increases irritability. In such an environment, disagreements arise more easily and are resolved more slowly. Arguments at home drain more than emotional energy, they drain mental clarity. When the mind is occupied with unresolved tension, it has less capacity to focus on work, planning, and problem solving. Financial growth requires attention and calm thinking. A stressed mind struggles to prioritize, make sound decisions, and see long-term consequences. Over time, repeated emotional stress at home weakens a person's ability to manage money wisely. Stress also affects physical energy. Poor sleep, restlessness, and fatigue are common in tense environments. When people are tired, their productivity drops. They may still show up for work, but their efficiency and creativity suffer. This often leads to missed opportunities for advancement, lower performance, and slower financial progress. In this way, emotional stress quietly turns into financial loss. Another effect of tension-filled homes is impulsive behavior. When people feel emotionally uncomfortable, they often look for relief. This relief may come in the form of unnecessary spending, emotional purchases, or risky financial decisions made to escape stress. These actions provide temporary comfort but damage long-term financial stability. A peaceful environment reduces the need for such coping mechanisms. Relationships within the home also influence wealth. Trust, cooperation, and shared goals are essential for financial planning, especially in families. When tension is high, cooperation breaks down. Discussions about money become arguments instead of planning sessions. Important decisions are avoided or rushed. Over time, this lack of alignment leads to financial disorganization and instability. A home filled with emotional heaviness also affects children. Children absorb the emotional atmosphere around them and reflect it in their behavior. Stress at home can lead to anxiety, lack of focus, and insecurity, which may affect their education and development. Since long-term wealth often depends on generational stability and growth, an emotionally stressful home weakens future potential as well. Peace creates a sense of safety. When people feel safe, they think clearly, communicate honestly, and act responsibly. Safety encourages long-term planning instead of short-term survival thinking. This shift in mindset is crucial for building and maintaining wealth. A peaceful home allows individuals to recover from daily pressures and return to their work with renewed focus and confidence. It is important to understand that peace does not mean the absence of problems. It means the ability to handle problems calmly and constructively. The environment plays a major role in this ability. When colors and surroundings support calmness and openness, conflicts are less intense and easier to resolve. When the environment amplifies tension, even minor issues can feel overwhelming. Many people underestimate how much their home environment contributes to their stress levels. They look for solutions outside, better jobs, higher income, new strategies, without addressing the emotional drain inside the home. Yet no amount of income can compensate for a space that constantly erodes peace. Wealth built on stress is unstable and easily lost. In conclusion, emotional stress and frequent arguments weaken the foundation of financial stability. A home that amplifies tension through heavy and lifeless colors quietly undermines peace, clarity, and cooperation. Without peace, wealth struggles to grow and even harder to stay. By creating an environment that supports calmness and emotional balance, a person protects not only their relationships, but also the financial stability that depends on them. Light has always been associated with clarity, growth, and opportunity. From the natural world to human psychology, environments filled with light encourage life, movement, and expansion. When it comes to the home, colors that reflect light play a powerful role in shaping the atmosphere and, in turn, the direction of a person's life. Soft whites, creams, gentle blues, and warm earth tones do far more than improve appearance. They create conditions in which blessing, opportunity, and financial progress can naturally take root. Light, reflecting colors make spaces feel open and breathable. Even smaller rooms appear larger and more welcoming when light is allowed to bounce freely across walls and surfaces. This openness has a direct psychological effect. When the mind perceives space, it relaxes. A relaxed mind is more receptive, more creative, and more confident. These qualities are essential for recognizing opportunities and acting on them. Wealth often begins as an idea, and ideas flourish in environments that feel open rather than closed. Colors that invite light also influence emotional balance. Soft and warm tones tend to calm the nervous system, reducing stress and anxiety. When stress levels are lower, people make better decisions. They are less reactive and more thoughtful, especially when it comes to money. Instead of acting out of fear or urgency, they can plan, evaluate risks, and think long-term. This type of decision-making protects wealth and allows it to grow steadily. Another powerful effect of light colors is the sense of cleanliness and order they create. Even in simple homes, light tones give the impression of care and intention. This visual order encourages mental order. People who live in such environments are more likely to stay organized, manage their time effectively, and maintain disciplined financial habits. Order in the environment supports order in behavior, and order in behavior supports financial stability. Light colors also encourage positive social interactions. Homes that feel warm and welcoming naturally invite conversation, cooperation, and harmony. This social ease has financial implications. Strong relationships often lead to shared opportunities, support during challenges, and collaborative growth. When people feel comfortable in a space, trust grows more easily. Trust is a hidden but powerful element of prosperity. There is also a subtle connection between light-reflecting colors and optimism. Bright, balanced spaces naturally lift mood. When people feel optimistic, they are more willing to try new approaches, learn new skills, and pursue growth. Optimism does not guarantee success, but it greatly increases the willingness to act. Action, guided by clarity and confidence, is what turns potential into income. In contrast, environments that lack light often reinforce feelings of limitation and fatigue. Light colors counteract this by creating a sense of freshness and renewal. Each day begins with a feeling of possibility rather than heaviness. Over time, this daily emotional boost compounds, leading to sustained motivation and resilience. These qualities are crucial for navigating financial challenges and staying committed to long-term goals. Light, reflecting colors also support balance. They do not overwhelm the senses or dominate attention. Instead, they provide a neutral and supportive backdrop for daily life. This balance helps prevent emotional extremes, neither constant tension nor excessive passivity. Balanced emotions lead to balanced financial behavior, avoiding both reckless risk-taking and paralyzing fear. Some people worry that light colors are boring or lack personality. In reality, they provide a foundation upon which personality can be expressed through details, textures, and accents. This approach mirrors healthy financial growth, a stable foundation with room for creativity and expression. Stability first, expansion second. The invitation of blessing is not mystical, it is practical. When an environment supports clarity, calm, and openness, people naturally behave in ways that attract opportunity. They communicate better, think more clearly, and act with confidence. These behaviors create conditions in which wealth can enter and remain. In conclusion, light-reflecting colors invite blessing and opportunity by shaping an environment that supports mental clarity, emotional balance, and positive action. They create openness where ideas can grow, calm where decisions can be made wisely, and warmth where relationships can flourish. By choosing colors that invite light, a person is not just improving their home's appearance, they are creating a supportive foundation for lasting prosperity and growth. Many people search for dramatic solutions when they feel stuck financially. They look for new careers, risky investments, or complex strategies, believing that only big moves can create big change. Yet some of the most powerful shifts come from small, intentional adjustments. One of these is the environment you live in every day. The seventh key point reminds us that small environmental changes, when made consciously, can unlock results far greater than their apparent size, especially when it comes to wealth and stability. The environment constantly sends messages to the subconscious mind. These messages shape behavior quietly and consistently. When a space feels heavy, dull, or restrictive, the mind adapts by becoming cautious, tired, and resistant to change. When that same space is refreshed, through lighter colors, better flow, or more balance, the messages change. The mind begins to receive signals of openness, clarity, and possibility. This shift may feel subtle at first, but its impact compounds over time. Small environmental changes often produce immediate psychological relief. A brighter wall, a more open room, or a better balance of light can make a space feel less oppressive. This relief reduces mental resistance. Tasks that once felt exhausting begin to feel manageable. When resistance decreases, action increases. Action, even in small amounts, is the starting point of financial improvement. Momentum begins not with dramatic breakthroughs, but with the willingness to move forward consistently. Another important effect of small changes is renewed awareness. When people intentionally adjust their environment, they become more conscious of their surroundings and habits. This awareness often spreads into other areas of life. People begin to notice how they spend time, energy, and money. They make small corrections, less waste, better planning, more intentional choices. These corrections may seem minor, but over time they significantly improve financial health. Small changes also restore a sense of control. Financial stress often makes people feel powerless, as if circumstances are deciding their fate. Changing the environment is a visible, tangible action that reminds the mind, I can influence my situation. This restored sense of agency is crucial. People who believe they have control are more proactive, more resilient, and more willing to seek opportunities. Wealth grows where there is a sense of personal responsibility and confidence. Consistency is another benefit of small adjustments. Large changes are difficult to maintain and often lead to burnout. Small, manageable changes are easier to sustain. When the environment supports daily routines instead of fighting them, consistency improves naturally. People stick to plans longer, follow through on goals, and recover from setbacks more quickly. Consistency, more than intensity, is what builds long-term wealth. There is also the effect of alignment. When the environment reflects intention and care, behavior tends to align with that intention. A space that feels balanced encourages balanced decisions. A space that feels open encourages open thinking. Over time, this alignment reduces internal conflict. People stop fighting themselves and begin working with their natural rhythms. This harmony makes progress feel smoother and less forced. Small environmental changes often have a ripple effect. One positive adjustment leads to another. A brighter room inspires better organization. Better organization inspires clearer thinking. Clearer thinking leads to smarter financial choices. This chain reaction illustrates how modest beginnings can lead to meaningful outcomes. Wealth is rarely the result of one single action. It is the accumulation of many aligned choices. Many people underestimate the power of the everyday environment because it feels ordinary. But what is ordinary is also what is repeated. Repetition shapes identity and behavior. When the environment repeatedly supports clarity and motivation, the person living in it gradually becomes more focused, disciplined, and confident. These traits are foundational for financial success. In conclusion, small environmental changes are powerful because they work quietly, consistently, and deeply. They reshape mindset, restore control, and encourage positive habits without requiring extreme effort. By making intentional adjustments to the space you live in, you remove hidden obstacles and create a foundation that supports growth. When the environment begins to work with you instead of against you, even small changes can unlock lasting financial results and open the door to greater prosperity.